In 1888, the Whitechapel district of London was plagued by a series of gruesome murders that would come to be known as the Whitechapel murders. The victims were all women, most of whom were prostitutes, and all of whom were brutally murdered with their throats slashed and their abdominal and genital areas mutilated. The killer, who became known as Jack the Ripper, was never caught, and his identity remains a mystery to this day. The first known victim of Jack the Ripper was Mary Ann Nichols, whose body was discovered on August 31, 1888. The police initially believed that her death was the result of a drunken fall, but the subsequent murders made it clear that they were dealing with a serial killer. The second victim, Annie Chapman, was found murdered just a few days later, on September 8. Her death was even more brutal than the first, with her throat slashed and her abdominal and genital areas mutilated in a manner that indicated the killer had surgical knowledge. The next victim was Elizabeth Stride, whose body was found on September 30. Her death was different from the previous two in that her throat was not slashed, leading the police to believe that the killer had been interrupted before he could complete his gruesome work. The same night, just a few streets away, Catherine Eddowes was found murdered. Her death was even more brutal than the previous two, with her throat slashed and her face mutilated beyond recognition. The fifth and final victim attributed to Jack the Ripper was Mary Jane Kelly, whose body was found on November 9, 1888. Her death was by far the most brutal of all, with her throat slashed and her body mutilated in a manner that indicated the killer had spent a significant amount of time with her. The killings caused widespread fear and panic in the Whitechapel district, and the police were under intense pressure to catch the killer. Several suspects were arrested and investigated, but none were ever conclusively linked to the murders. The case remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in history, and the legend of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate people to this day. Despite the intense investigation and numerous suspects, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown. The investigation was hampered by a lack of forensic technology, and the fact that many of the witnesses were poor and illiterate. The police also faced criticism for their handling of the case, and for failing to catch the killer. However, many theories have been proposed over the years about the identity of Jack the Ripper. Some have suggested that he was a member of the royal family or a high-ranking government official, while others have pointed to a variety of suspects, including doctors, butchers, and even a woman. The most popular theory is that the killer was a man named Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and resident of Whitechapel who was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was confined to an asylum. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and it remains just a speculation. Despite the passage of time, the case of Jack the Ripper continues to capture the public's imagination. The brutal murders and the identity of the killer remain a mystery, and it continues to be the subject of books, movies, and television shows. The legend of Jack the Ripper has become a part of pop culture and continues to fascinate people to this day. The Jack the Ripper case is seen as the first modern serial killer case in history. It has set the foundation for the study of criminal psychology and forensic science. The case remains unsolved, and it's unlikely that the true identity of the killer will ever be known, but its importance in the history of crime and criminal investigation will always be remembered. Despite the fact that the case remains unsolved, it has not stopped people from theorizing about the true identity of Jack the Ripper. Some have suggested that the Ripper was a member of the upper class, possibly even a physician or a member of the royal family. Others have pointed to the possibility of a group or a conspiracy being behind the murders. Another theory suggests that the Ripper was a woman, possibly a midwife or a nurse with knowledge of anatomy. This theory is based on the fact that the Ripper seemed to have a good understanding of the female anatomy and was able to remove organs with precision. However, this theory is not widely accepted, and there is no concrete evidence to support it. Some suggest that the Ripper was a Freemason, as some of the murders occurred near Masonic lodges and some of the victims were found with Masonic symbols near their bodies. However, there is no solid evidence linking the murders to the Freemasons, and it is considered to be just a theory. In recent years, several books and documentaries have been published that claim to have uncovered new evidence and solved the case, but none of them have been able to provide concrete proof to support their claims. In conclusion, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Despite numerous investigations and theories, the killer was never caught and his identity remains a mystery. The case continues to fascinate people to this day, and it is likely that it will continue to be the subject of speculation and debate for years to come. The importance of the case is not just the mystery of the killer's identity, but also the impact it had on the development of criminal investigation techniques and forensic science.